Yo, what's up? You're hanging with the Niners Nut. It's a Wednesday at 6:05 p.m. here on the East Coast. Hope everybody's well. What we're talking about tonight, of course, was the season finale victory against the Arizona Cardinals last Sunday. Always good to end the season on another win, sweeping the NFC West. Another good thing about this season was we were able to go 6-0 against our rivals, the Rams, the Cardinals, and of course the Seattle Seahawks. Seeing them this Saturday in this playoff game will be our third matchup of the season with them. So going back to Sunday's game, I think it was a phenomenal win, which we all expected to happen. Of course, the Cardinals have been absolute dog shit all season long, especially with the fact that no Kyler Murray, no Colt McCoy. They went from Trace McSorley to this guy Blau, who I remember playing with the Detroit Lions. No DeAndre Hopkins. They've been hit or miss with Hollywood Brown. So they're decimated by injuries, man. The one good thing I can say about them is that J.J. Watt had a phenomenal season, which is his final season in the NFL. Unfortunately, he was a great talent, definitely a future Hall of Famer. So that whole team has to be rebuilt. Of course, the firing of head coach Cliff Kingsbury, which was expected. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. There's been rumors that he will go to New England to be an offensive coordinator, which they very much need because Josh McDaniels is a shit head coach in Las Vegas, and Matt Patricia is not an offensive coordinator by any chance. So that would make a lot of sense if he did go there. But who knows where he will go, and who knows who comes to Arizona. But a team that was just, obviously just torn apart all season long. Their offensive line was just patchwork. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. We got the win 38-13, and a lot of good things came out of that victory, of course. We got to see Brock Purdy throw for 3 touchdown passes. We got to Sean Gibson Jr. We got to see him pick off 2 passes, which gave him the season lead for interceptions for the 49ers with 5, and how he's playing his best football that I think of his career right now at 32, which is not old, but as an age where sometimes you start to see some decline in players that are playing at that age, especially at his position. So we got to see that. We got to see Nick Bosa get another sack. We got to see Elijah Mitchell come back. Debo come back. Brandonaiyuk broke 1,000 yards. So there was a lot of good stuff going on in that game, man. Mitch Wishnowsky pinning the Arizona back inside the 20 as he's done all season long for more than half of his kicks. So lots of good things going on there. I was happy to see Josh Johnson get in at the end. I was happy to see Mason get in at the end. So lot of good things to feel good about. That's the way a season should end, with hardly any injuries and getting guys in there in late in the fourth quarter that are on the bench, and not having to rest any players, of course, because of the upcoming matchup against the Seahawks. Which brings me to my next point. I want to thank the New York Giants for nothing, of course, for obviously tanking that last game so they could rest all their starters, so they could pretty much get blown out this week against Minnesota. Although I will say it will be interesting to see who wins that game, because it really won't matter, because neither one of those teams is going anywhere anyway. So it'll be just funny to see what happens there. The Vikings more overrated than the Giants, of course, but still, the Giants could have done us a favor and tried and knocked off the Philadelphia Eagles and given us the first seed. But you know what? At this point, who gives a shit? In a sense, I'd rather be playing every week and be hungry than a team that's been off, especially when we're getting all our players back healthy, and we have a home field advantage. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, man, another game Sunday for Brock Purdy under his belt to show that he's legit, to show that he's by far the best out of the rookie quarterbacks coming out this season as the last pick in the draft, and to show the depth that this team has all over. I think that's always an important thing. And of course, Getting to see how Pete Carroll feels about us. You heard what he said in his press conference. Unfortunately, we're playing the 49ers. A lot of people are saying that that's just some type of strategic thing. I think he's actually telling the truth because he knows what a deadly squad we are. Continue the winning streak, and have just been playing lights out, the best football that we've played. I think even more than our Super Bowl year 3 years ago. So Chris McCaffrey, Kyle Juszczyk getting things going. The one thing I didn't like to see was the 4 sacks given up by the offensive line, which we really haven't seen that much of this year. But I guess it was bound to happen. I know they were missing Spencer Burford, but still, you don't want to see that offensive line give up that many sacks. We didn't have a lot of penalties, which was a good thing. But overall, like I said, a win. A win is always a good thing. 38-13 is an absolute ass whipping, and should be that much when you're a team like the Cardinals, who's decimated by injuries, just having a miserable season. But just looking at some of the game stats from Sunday, we see that another good win at home. By the way, I hate when ESPN has the stupid videos that have the voice thing on it, and you have to pause it. But looking at some of these stats from Sunday, obviously, I don't know what we expected out of David Blau, who's been, pretty much, I guess, to some extent, the journeyman. I don't know why they weren't playing Trace McSorley, who did get in the game eventually and throw an interception. Thank you very much. But Blau was 14 of 18 for 180, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, sacked 3 times. They couldn't run the ball. They had a total of 61 yards on the ground. And to be fair, there was no John Connor. There was Corey Clement, who came over from the Philadelphia Eagles. Greg Dortch ran the ball. Pharaoh Cooper, Keontae Ingram. So this team is just, they all but quit. Let's face it. Receiving, AJ Green had that big catch in the beginning, which was pretty much it. 3 catches, 91 yards, and a touchdown. Trey McBride, 3 catches, 41. There's a guy with some upside. Greg Dortch has some upside. 4 catches for 30 yards. Again, not much for them. Hollywood Brown had 1 catch for 7 yards. You wouldn't have even known he was there. So he had a shit season. And on the defensive side of the ball, they were able to get 4 sacks. 2 of those coming from J.J. Watt, 1 from Isaiah Simmons, and the other one coming from Cameron Thomas. Had their offense would have been better this year and not so many injuries, maybe their defense would have been a lot better. I really don't know. I don't think it really would have mattered because they suck all around. For the Niners, Brock Purdy, of course, was 15-20 for 178, 3 touchdowns, no picks. That's just enough. It's what he had to do. Didn't have to throw for even 200 yards, but did get 3 touchdowns. Elijah Mitchell led the way with running, of course, followed by Jordan Mason, Tyrone Davis-Price. Mason, of course, had 28 yards on the ground. Let me just slide this over. Davis-Price, 27. He needs to get more time. David Price, needs more burn. And then, of course, Elijah Mitchell, 5 carries, 55 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So, always a good thing. McCaffrey, 10 carries, 45 yards. So we're loaded at the offensive backfield, as everybody already knows. And then receiving-wise, Brandonaiyuk, 4 catches, 59 yards. McCaffrey, 3 for 34 and a touchdown. GK continues his reign in these last few weeks of football. 4 catches, 29 yards, and 2 touchdowns, back-to-back dual touchdown games. Got the record there. And was he the 3rd all-time tight end to have the most yards in 6 seasons, I believe. Just keeps on showing why he's so valuable. Kyle Juszczyk had a catch for 26 yards. Deebo had 2 catches and 20 yards in his first time back. And then Aziz Al-Shahir led the team with 11 tackles. Fred Warner had 8. Diamor Dolanor had 7. Let's see who else. Jordan Willis had 3 and a sack. Bosa had a sack and a half a sack for Ebelcom, a half a sack for Amin Yahoo. 2 picks from Deshaun Gibson Jr. and 1 from ex-Indianapolis Colt George Odom. 1 kick return, 1 punt return for 1 kick return, 2 punt returns for Ray. return to kickoff 33 yards, 2 punts returned for 22 yards. And of course, Mitch Wishnowsky, who got 3 of the 5 of his punts inside the 20 like he's done all year long. So it was a great victory for us, man. And of course, what we were waiting for was to see, it was really annoying, man, to see where every team was going to finish this year. Why can't the NFL just have 8 teams in the playoffs, even out the number? It'll just elongate the season even longer, and it'll just make things better for us football fans because we'll have more to look forward to. It'll also be doing a team or teams a favor by allowing them to get into the playoffs and having one more round. But I don't know why they don't do it. Whatever. That being said, look, we match up this week with the Seattle Seahawks, and as we've known before, we beat them twice this past season. And this isn't going to be. I don't think this is going to be a difficult game for us. Although this is a game that you really can't take your eye off of because you don't want to have. Seattle's fighting for their lives basically. Although they've had a good season, Geno Smith had a really good run, but of course now we need to see him at the start of a new season, which is the playoffs, and of course they have. The rookie Walker, who cracked 1,000 yards at running back, and the two-headed beast receiving wise, and Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. I'm not too worried about their defense, although it hasn't played that bad this season. Nuoso leads them in sacks. They don't have. They have Barton. They don't have Jordan Kendricks there. Their other leading linebacker who tore his ACL. So that's good for us. But either way, I don't think it really would matter. Seattle team that's had a really good season and really has, made the non-believers shocked everybody. I think from Geno Smith to the way they've played. But it comes to an end this week, and they're not going to beat us, not in Levi Stadium at all. But again, this is one you don't want to take your eye off of. We got to get each game done. Business by game by game. Business is business. We got to take care of them. I hope a blowout happens. We get to see Brock Purdy in another game. And the good thing is when we don't have a bye, this allows Brock Purdy to keep going week by week basis, and you don't have to wait a week because sometimes that could really stump a young person's, I guess, growth because, you're so used to rhythm, so used to things. And I just think this works well for the whole team. So I'd rather us be playing every week than sitting out and not doing anything. And of course, we're playing at home, which is always a good thing. But I see us winning this game maybe 37 to 13 or 37 to 20 or something like that, us pulling away early and just holding on to the lead, cruising through. Obviously, we know what a great season Geno Smith had. I think he's up there for comeback player of the year, and he has had a great season, by far the best in his career. But let's face it, their offensive line isn't the best. Nick Bosa is going to get after him. We're going to put pressure on him, causing him to, probably move out of the backfield because Geno Smith does have some wheels. But I think the key to winning this game is shutting down Walker in the backfield because we know when we shut down running backs, we win. We saw Shavarius Ward do a great job on DK Metcalf, their last matchup. Go look at the stats, what Ward held him to, and, Tyler Lockett on the other side. But again, this is a defensive backfield that has really had a tremendous season that nobody really saw coming, I don't think. And they're playing their best football right now as they're able to generate interceptions from Tashawn Gibson Jr., who led the team with 5. Talanoa Hufnega had 4 picks on his way to the Pro Bowl. So Jimmy Ward, we're loaded with talent back there. And it just seems to me that every game, this defensive backfield gets a lot better. They really haven't had too many breakdowns this season. Of course, I can always go back to the Kansas City game, which was a total team breakdown. But I think since then, they've really tightened things up a lot. And thank you guys for being on the live feed, by the way. And again, I don't think this should really be a tough game for us. We want to take it one game at a time. But looking at the NFC the way it is, the Buccaneers have the Cowboys, and of course, the Eagles get the first round bye, and the Giants and the Vikings is the game to pay attention to other than ourselves, because I think that could either be a dogfight or that could be a lopsided one. I think more lopsided to the fact that in terms of the Giants whipping the Vikings, because the Vikings have a god-awful defense and have all season long. They give up a shitload of points, but they can score a lot of points with, the connection from Cousins to Justin Jefferson, who's had a phenomenal season with Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, and, of course, the running game of Alexander Mattinson and Dalvin Cook. So, offensively, other than Cousins, I think they're a solid team. But with Cousins, I don't think you ever know really what you're getting, because you get the guy who throws for 3 and 4, 100 yards, 3 touchdowns. Then you get the guy who turns the ball over and is not that clutch. And that's what history has shown about him. But their defense can't stop anyone. But again, the Giants are going on the road. Obviously, they don't have to play outside, which is a good thing. So you got to hope, if you're a Giant fan, you really got to hope that Daniel Jones can deliver, because I wonder if he's going to be using his feet. It seems to me when he uses his feet and his arm in a combination similar to what DeBoll did with Josh Allen, it really works, because the Giants really don't seem to have a real true number one wide receiver. Darius Slayton, not really a number one. Kenny Galladay's been stealing money. And obviously they're down Wan'Dale Robinson. So it should be interesting to see what happens in that game. The biggest factor in that game will be Saquon Barkley and be the New York Giant defense. So looking at that one, we'll have to pay attention to. And then, of course, I'm not really looking towards the AFC right now. I think the only teams to worry about in the AFC is Kansas City and Cincinnati, more Kansas City. But I do see that Cincinnati does have Kansas City's number and has had it the last 2 seasons. So we could potentially be looking at Cincinnati coming out of the East. But the other matchup of Dallas and Tampa Bay, I'm going to go with Tampa Bay in that one, because I just feel that even though their offense is kind of stale this season, you can't trust the Dallas Cowgirls, man. Dallas Cowgirls are all bark and no bite. Prescott has not had the best season. Plus, he was hurt a good chunk of it. They do have a very nice running duo in Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. But at the same time, I think that's going to be exhausted come Sunday. And you're going to see the Buccaneers, who have a pretty good defense, be able to stop that. But the Buccaneers' problem has been on their offense. They can't run the ball, okay? And it seems to me that, in order for them to be victorious, the ball's got to be in Brady's hands, like, all the time. And he's got Godwin, who's had another good season, and Mike Evans, who's had a phenomenal season. So I think that that's probably going to come down to, him having the ball last, which you really don't want. But I just can't trust the Dallas Cowboys, especially with Dak throwing picks and whatnot and the injuries. I just don't think that they're a for real team. So, that's just something to look at for the upcoming future. But I think overall, also too, in the AFC, you're looking at Buffalo blowing out the Miami Dolphins, because Miami has to travel all the way to freezing cold Buffalo this week, not with Tagliova, not with Teddy Bridgewater, but with rookie Skylar Thompson. And there's no way that Miami is going to beat Buffalo in January with a rookie quarterback. There's no way that's going to happen. If it does, hey, look, anything's possible, but I doubt it. But again, Chiefs get the bye there in that division, so it should be interesting to see what happens there. I think the Buffalo Bills have lost a step since the season began. I don't know who the commentator was on Sunday, but he said something incorrect. It could have been, I don't think it was Daryl Johnston. Was he doing the Jet game, Daryl Johnston, Moose Johnston? Well, I think it was Tony Romo was saying something about how Buffalo can run the ball. And my question, I screamed. I'm like, Buffalo can run the ball? Really? When's the last time Buffalo had a 1,000-yard runner? Because Singletary obviously is not the answer. And Cook, he's okay, but they're not a running team. I mean, the most wheels person they have who has the wheels is Josh Allen, which is good and bad, because I think eventually you have to have some type of running game. And I think that Buffalo has lost a step from where the season began till now, and they're questionable. If you can, because Allen throws picks, and if you can get pressure on him, force him into bad passes, keep him on his feet, which way, he's going to be looking to get that first down with his feet anyway. But you always have to account for Stephon Diggs, who's been deadly all season long, as has Dawson Knox came up with some really big catches on Sunday. But again, I don't worry about Buffalo. I'm more concerned about the Kansas City Chiefs and the Cincinnati Bengals. Moreover, the Kansas City Chiefs, because they've had our number the last 2 times we played them, and of course this past season when they blew us out. Now, are we a different team than then? I totally think so. We're riding the streak. Looks like a total different team than we saw. And a lot of that has to do, I think, with D'Amico Ryans, and a lot of that has to do with Brock Purdy. A lot of that has to do with Kyle Shanahan. A lot of that has to do with Chris McCaffrey, probably the best trick, all season long, the best move made, the most important. And I was critical of it to begin with, but it's worked out in dividend. How he's not an all-pro, I don't know. He cracked 1,000 yards again. Look at the amount of yards he has for total between receiving and running, and, that speaks for itself. The guy is such a valuable player. I can't understand how he's not an all-pro or how he's not in the Pro Bowl. It's just absolute bullshit. But that being said, we're definitely in a good place, and this should be an interesting weekend with some of the games. Cincinnati, I think, will definitely knock off Baltimore because right now, what I'm seeing, Lamar Jackson isn't playing, and I'll tell you this much. If this is the last season for Baltimore, which I think it was, I don't think Baltimore's going to pay Lamar Jackson what he wants for a couple of reasons. A, because I don't think he's worth the money for a lot of reasons because he seems an extremely talented quarterback, but or player, I should say. But as a quarterback, I don't see it. So that may be better for them to go in a different direction. And I think maybe that if they get knocked out early, they could be looking into another different head coach because I think Harbaugh has kind of had his run there. They don't have a number one wide receiver as we know about. And I don't know if Gus Edwards is playing. He was banged up this past Sunday. But Cincinnati is again another team that got hot at the right time. They have a tremendous trio of wide receivers in Boyd Higgins and, of course, Jamar Chase and Hayden Hurst, the tight end, who's had a really good season. I think he's caught over 50 passes. Of course, Joe Mixon, Samjay Perine. Another matchup, which I think is probably one of the best matchups of this weekend coming up, is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Los Angeles Chargers. And I'm kind of pulling for I'm going to put my money on the Jacksonville Jaguars because I think, like most past seasons, the Los Angeles Chargers just don't know how to close out games and are just not serious. They just can't get out of their own way. And Jacksonville is one of those teams that's riding a high right now, that's really picked up in the middle of the season, has gotten themselves together, and has played at a really high rate that starts from Trevor Lawrence to Travis Etienne to Christian Kirk, which has been one of the best free agent moves all season with Zay Jones and the veteran Marvin Jones. And their defense, may not have a stud guy who's got a million sacks out there, but they've got various good players on defense. And I just think, again, they're surging in the right direction and they're hot. Moving on to the last topic, it has to do with the post I had up before about showing the 2023 first round draft pick, which shows the 49ers not eligible for a first round draft pick because, as you already know, they traded away two of their first round picks to Miami 2 years ago when they drafted Trey Lance. My point of the post was not making fun of Trey Lance in any sense of the word or calling him out because I like Trey Lance. I think he's a good kid. I think he's got a lot of athletic ability. I hope he heals from his injury, which it says he was. And I hope all good things from him. He's a 49er. I mean, why wouldn't I want to see a 49er do well? Why wouldn't I want to see him do well? Even if it's not with us next year, I want to see him do well and come back from injury. My point of the post was that it was a bad move business-wise. And again, I've said this various times. Whenever you trade away two first-round draft picks for an unknown player, the place you're putting your organization is a very difficult one because you have really got to hope that this guy who went to a very small college, who did not play his senior year, is the stud linchpin that you need, especially for a roster that is already well seasoned. And, a lot of those guys have been around since 3 years ago when they went to the Super Bowl. So the turnover of new players isn't that much, really. But again, I think that the way they went about getting him, they didn't have to go trade away two first-round draft picks. I think that was a total waste of time, especially now. Of course, it's hindsight is 2020, as I was trying to explain to that gentleman. But going into last season, you had the injury season, the throwaway season 2 years ago, and going into last season, you drafted this kid and automatically you put Jimmy G in a tough spot. But what happens? Jimmy G's the starter, and look what happens. We go all the way to the NFC Championship game. Fast forward to this year where it is that Trey Lance is going to be the starter and Jimmy G is going to be traded away. Jimmy G has that shoulder injury, which probably scared off a lot of teams. He never gets traded away. And how'd that work out for us? Well, Trey Lance went down. Jimmy G came in and did a damn good job while he was out. And we draft Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy. So, again, it's been a mistake that we gave up that much equity for a guy who's played, a total of 4 games. And that's not a diss at him because he did get hurt this season. But this is a business in which you have to be objective in. This is a game that you have to be objective about. And you have to also be practical and you have to be using common sense and using your eyes and ears. That gentleman before I'm talking about, well, you are no expert. I said, well, no shit, I'm no expert. I never said I was. But even the experts aren't experts because nobody would have seen what they've seen in Brock Purdy, who's outplayed the guys like Malik Willis, who's outplayed guys like Desmond Ridder, Sam Howell. Now, a lot of these guys didn't have a lot of time on the center. I know that, and missed chunks of time this season. But what I'm saying is coming out, you didn't hear Brock Purdy's name. You heard so many other guys' names. Kenny Pickett, he's outplayed all of them. So now, looking back going into year 3, which will be Trey Lance's 3rd year, my question is, how is that trade looking? What's it looking like right now? Well, it looks like shit, because going into next season, we have a good problem. You've got Garoppolo and Purdy, who had 2 good seasons this year. You're going into the season with them, still with them. Of course, we could see Garoppolo go somewhere else, or there could be a trade or whatever. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But it's a good problem to have, and I hate to say it, but Trey Lance is kind of the odd man out because he's been hurt and he hasn't been able to play. And I also brought up the point, if Trey Lance was so good, why did they even waste their time drafting Brock Purdy? Well, of course, he was the last pick in the draft. So with that pick, sometimes you have wiggle room when you're looking just to fill the roster or maybe bring somebody along to challenge Trey Lance in camp. But look how it turned out. Brock Purdy's had a monster season and could possibly be Rookie of the Year, so I was reading. So, again, my question is, how did the business in which you went about getting Trey Lance, how's that looking? It's looking like shit, and it may be something that management has to own up to, because you gave away 2 first-round draft picks for the next 2 years, well, one coming up again, for a kid who's played a total of 4 games. Okay, and again, it's not his fault. I mean, I hope Trey Lance turns it around. There's still time to do it. I just don't really see it being in a red and gold uniform next year, and I don't know if this things. I don't even think Brock Purdy. If the season ended tomorrow, I still got to go with Brock Purdy, man, as the starter. I mean, I think that's the common sense. But of course, we're riding our 10-game winning streak going into the playoffs, and no reason why we shouldn't win a Super Bowl. If that happens, you won't see Trey Lance again. I mean, are you really going to put him on the bench for what? For, just because you gave up all that equity to give him? I don't see it happening. I think your better bet would be to sign Jimmy Garoppolo and have him and Brock Purdy, but that's just me. Because at the same time, if that doesn't work out, Garoppolo could go to several different teams, maybe the New York Jets, maybe the Las Vegas Raiders. Who knows? But he could play somewhere else, even in the Indianapolis Colts. But that's something to talk about at the time being. My point was, what that post is, it was bad business to trade 2 first-round draft picks when you didn't have to. You could have had Justin Fields, who obviously dropped down. Or if you do the math, go back and look at that draft. Where we were originally, we would have drafted Micah Parsons. So think about that. You would have had Micah Parsons on the team as well. It was a bad move, in my opinion. Okay, that was my point of that. It had nothing to do with Trey Lance personally or athletically. It had to do with just getting him in the business sense in which we got him, which I thought was stupid. So, that was about it. Just looking at some game stats from I always like to break down the game stats a little bit from Sunday, because it just gives us a better idea sometimes of the way teams operated and whatnot, and a lot of the luck that we had. What I really liked is that we didn't have a lot of penalties, of course, but I think it's the little things that matter. For instance, beating them on first downs 21-11. Having more total plays than them, having more total yards. Picking them off 3 times. Stuff like that. Penalties, let's just see. They had 7 penalties for 50 yards to our 2 for 10. They had 4 turnovers to our no turnovers. And we held the ball for 9 minutes more, or just about 8 and change. And again, we've talked about that. When we hold the other team and we hold them to 100 yards, we win. I mean, it's common sense, really. So some solid stats from Sunday, and looking forward, I think this is going to be a win for the 49ers, of course, because how a lot of these so-called experts are saying nobody wants to see us right now. Go and watch Julian Edelman's video, which someone had up, and he talks about how he's picking the 49ers to win it all, and he backs it up with a lot of interesting facts. I think he's 110% right. So I think we're going to destroy the Birds on Saturday, and we'll be moving on from there. And obviously be a force to reckon with, as nobody really wants to face us in the NFC or as well as in the AFC. So great season altogether. I mean, let's face it. I don't think anyone expected to have what we're doing. No one expected the midseason trade for CMC. No one expected to have Brock Purdy come off the bench and do as good as he is. But these are all great things, man. And we're in a fantastic place. This team has talent on top of talent at various different positions, and they're just another opponent's nightmare, really. So if you have any questions or comments or whatever, always feel free to send them to me. By the way, I never get mad at people having conflicting opinions with mine on my posts. I don't claim to know everything. I know I don't know everything. I am not an expert whatsoever. I welcome other people's ideas, objections, critiques of mine. I welcome all that. I love the conversation because we're talking about a team that we all love. So it's all good, man. Thank you for being part of the page and being part of the live feed. Come on, red and gold. I want to see a pounding on this Seahawk team. Send Pete Carroll packing. So that being said, you're hanging with the Niners nut. I will be coming back at you with some more content, hopefully earlier in the week. So I really appreciate everybody being part of the feed and of the page. All right. Niner Nut is out. Everybody have a great evening. Peace.